No, this we keep empty.
Yeah.
Because it's a bit hidden behind the others.
Okay.
Then
In the middle? Or?
in the middle, yes, in the middle. And you start, then me, and then Peter. Yeah.
Sure. Yes.
He starts, then me, and then you.
Yeah,
That's a nice statement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Okay. And introduce yourself very shortly to them, because not everybody knows your name.
Good.
Yeah?
Then we should sit like here. Marcel, I think we should sit like here.
We should sit like
So
here.
here we go.
Okay. Let me go here.
That's
Okay.
Okay, good. Here we go.
Bună ziua! Bine ați venit la conferința de presă legat de Cluj Aviation Event 2022, care va avea loc mâine. Suntem foarte onorați. Mâine vom avea o participare deosebită în ce privește nu numai speakerii, dar și participanții la această conferință. La această conferință de presă participă domnul Marcel Rivalski, CEO la Aviation Event.
In this press conference, the participants are Mr. Marcel Rivalski, CEO of Aviation Event,
Mr. Peter Baumgartner, member of the board of Aviation Event and also CEO of chairman of Blue Arbor. Trebuie să aștept pentru traducere sau nu?
Ați vorbit în engleză.
Da, am vorbit în engleză, da. Da, mulțumesc. Și de asemenea, întârzie puțin, domnul Vitali Cuceruc, care este director general Aeroportului Kherson din Ucraina.
And Mr. Vitali Kucheruk is expected to come soon. He is the general manager of the airport of Kherson International.
Întârzie puțin pentru că a venit cu mașina și a condus dânsul. Probabil că o să ne spună despre greutățile pe care le-a întâmpinat conducând prin Ucraina în această perioadă de război.
He has come by car this time, he has driven himself, and he will probably share with us all the difficulties he has encountered on his road through the Ukraine.
Domnul Vitali Cuceruc a mai fost la Aeroportul Internațional Cluj. Noi am discutat anii trecuți chiar de posibilitatea unui zbor cu aeroportul din Kherson și în acest sens am avut o întâlnire în trei cu dânsul și cu domnul Iosef Arodi, CEO de la Wizz Air.
Mr. Vitali Kucheruk has been in Cluj International Airport before, and we had discussed the possibility of having flights between Cluj and Kherson International Airport, as well as other partners from Wizz Air.
Pentru început, o să-i dau cuvântul la domnul Marcel Rivalski, CEO of Aviation Event.
For the beginning, I will invite Mr. Marcel Rivalski, CEO of Aviation Event, to take the floor.
Hello and welcome from my side. Happy to be in Cluj, and David, even more happy to be in Cluj International Airport. Thank you.
Bună ziua, bine ați venit din partea mea. Mă bucur foarte mult să fiu în Cluj și, domnule David, mă bucur și mai mult să fiu la Aeroportul Internațional din Cluj.
Actually, we started discussing about this project with David in Germany while having German beer over 1 year ago. And we found that this is a crazy idea.
Am început discuțiile despre acest proiect în urmă cu peste un an în Germania, degustând o bere și ne bucurăm că suntem acum aici.
But then we decided that what is called in aviation industry regional aviation deserves a platform like Aviation Event, a media platform. And by the way, myself, I never use regional aviation. For me, it's mid-size aviation. So Cluj Airport is not a regional airport for me, it's a mid-size airport.
Atunci am stabilit că este nevoie de o platformă media pentru aceste lucruri, pentru industria aviației. Pentru mine, Clujul nu reprezintă un aeroport de mărime regională, ci este un aeroport de mărime medie.
As you heard already from David, the fourth chair is still empty. We hope that Vitaly will join us in a few minutes. He already arrived in Romania, even in Cluj, but it takes a few minutes probably to get him here. Vitaly comes directly from the southeast of Ukraine, right? Southeast? Sorry, yeah. Driving through Ukraine on small roads over the night, being threatened by combat helicopters from these war criminals from Russia, but still he made it, and he's here, I think, with his wife, and he's now safe, and he's willing to speak to you a bit later. He's also going to be part of the conference tomorrow.
După cum v-a spus și domnul Cicio, domnul Vitali Cuceruc este așteptat să sosească în câteva minute. Dânsul a călătorit în partea de sud-est a Ucrainei, a străbătut-o în etape mici, a fost mereu amenințat de elicoptere rusești. Acum soția dânsului este în siguranță și copiii dânsului. Trebuie să îi acordăm câteva minute ca să ajungă aici. Va participa mâine la conferința despre Aviation Event.
This conference, which is scheduled for tomorrow, was originally planned on 7th of December last year, and we couldn't run it because of COVID. You remember the time, November, December, was very critical in most European countries, so Romania, and therefore it has been rescheduled for now, let's say, springtime.
Această conferință a fost planificată să aibă loc în 7 decembrie anul trecut, dar datorită COVID-ului și a evenimentelor din Europa a fost replanificată pentru primăvară, mai precis acum.
So it was kind of, I think I can speak for all airport people, aviation people here in Romania, and also for all the supervisory board of Aviation Event, like Peter Baumgartner as one of our board members. It was out of question to postpone this for a second time, this time because of a war. So we decided we will run it and consider the current situation in Europe and consider the current situation in Eastern European aviation. And this is why tomorrow we will have one panel and one keynote, which is, let's say, where the topic has been designed to the Ukrainian war. So thank you for supporting us in letting the world know what happens there. But nevertheless, we have also the, let's say, usual aviation topics, like, as I said, regional, mid-size aviation, and we also talk a lot about recovery of aviation industry after almost two years in COVID. And we will have some interesting insights on specific, maybe specific, question mark, specifics of Eastern European aviation. Is it different to run aviation operations in Eastern Europe than in the rest of Europe? This is one of the questions which will be discussed on one panel tomorrow.
Nu se punea problema ca această conferință să fie amânată pentru a doua oară și cred că vorbesc în numele mai multor persoane, inclusiv a domnului Peter Baumgartner, când spun că această conferință trebuia neapărat să aibă loc. Ar fi fost amânată datorită situației curente a războiului din Ucraina. Din cauza aceasta, conferința de mâine va include și o discuție panel în care va fi discutată această problemă alături de alte secțiuni în care vor fi discutate probleme importante legate de situația aviației din Europa de Sud și a regiunii în care ne aflăm.
Tomorrow we will have about almost 30 speakers in panels, in keynotes, in moderated keynotes, as we call it, different formats to make it a bit more, let's say, interesting. And these almost 30 speakers coming from 18 different countries. So Cluj will be the, let's say, the center of aviation of Europe for at least one day.
Clujul va fi, se pare, centrul aviației din Europa pentru cel puțin o zi. Vor participa cam 30 de vorbitori din 18 țări. Va fi o conferință care va lua diferite formate, de la panel, vom avea vorbitori, keynote speaker, principali, tocmai pentru ca să conferim varietate și dinamism conferinței.
So this proves, dear David, this proves that with good connections to Europe, you can transform even regions which are not geographically totally centered in Europe, you can transform them in economically booming regions thanks to aviation. And thanks to David Cicero and his team having transported this city and this airport in such a performant place.
Domnule David, deși Clujul nu se află geografic situat în centrul Europei, datorită eforturilor dumneavoastră, ale echipei dumneavoastră, Clujul a devenit un centru al aviației internaționale și a putut promova dezvoltarea în această regiune.
Obviously, when we started this project, there were concerns in our own supervisory board with customers, with speakers, with other supporters, with sponsors. But at the end, I can confirm, at least we didn't hear it, nobody cancelled its participation tomorrow because of how to get to Cluj. That was even not a question anymore. Even though in the beginning of this, I have to admit, this was a topic, but at the end, all those who we wanted to be here, except some which had other commitments in other locations on the same day, are here and they can fly here, and all the connections are perfectly working. I think no delay so far, David. Everybody was on time so far, right? Yeah. And many more are coming, by the way, today and tomorrow.
Deși au existat ezitări din partea participanților, a sponsorilor și a tuturor factorilor care au fost implicați, nimeni, după câte știu eu, nu a renunțat să participe la această conferință. Zborurile au sosit la timp și toată lumea va participa mâine la conferință. Se pare chiar peste numărul anunțat inițial.
I would like to thank all sponsors, which you can see behind you and on all the sides. I especially thank Romanian Airport Organization and obviously Cluj Airport. Before handing over to Aviation and Supervisory Board member Peter Baumgartner, I would like to invite you after our introduction, let's say words here, to have an open dialogue. So questions and challenges are welcome. For the case of Vitaly, if he comes in time and in case he makes it in time, which we all hope, we have a translation because Vitaly speaks only Russian and Ukraine. And maybe I can introduce the translator. Can you come shortly up to the stage, Hannah? A short applause for Hannah, please. Hannah, come here to me in the middle. Come here to me in the middle very shortly. Hannah is from Ukraine and also escaped from the war, right?
Yeah, thank you for having me here. I was able to escape before the old bad things started happening. I left Kiev on 25th. I was able to cross the border on March 1st. And I am lucky enough to be based in Warsaw for the meantime and do some volunteering. And I work in SkyUp Airlines, representing the airlines here today and tomorrow. And happy to be here. And thank you for all the support you're showing and everything you're doing to support our country.
Just last words about Ukraine here. Any Ukrainian guest tomorrow in the conference can access the conference free of charge. That's what we decided some weeks ago. Thank you, Hannah, and hopefully Vitaly will come very soon. Now I will hand over to Peter.
Pe scurt, înainte de a da cuvântul domnului Regional Supervisor, domnul Peter Baumgartner, domnul Rivalski a mulțumit sponsorilor și în special conducerii Aeroportului Cluj pentru sprijinul și organizarea acestei conferințe. De asemenea, pentru că domnul Vitali Cuceruc nu cunoaște decât limba ucraineană și rusă, a fost introdusă domnișoara translator care a mărturisit că a scăpat cu greu înainte de izbucnirea evenimentelor triste din Ucraina, că a trăit momente dificile și mulțumește conferinței pentru faptul că poate fi prezentă aici. Și acum cuvântul domnului chairman de la Blue Air Bre, domnul Peter Baumgartner.
Peter, the stage is yours.
I'm very impressed by your memory. Respect. Interpreter, I would love to have your memory. Dear honored guests, valued members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, as Marcel said, we are extremely happy to have landed here in Cluj today. And there are several reasons for that. First, as David, a fellow member of the Aviation Event Supervisory Board, educated and inspired us about Cluj earlier last year, its economic position in Eastern Europe and its agenda for the future, particularly in the field of aviation and the wider transportation sector. We are so keen and ready to come to your town.
Stimați oaspeți, distinși reprezentanți ai presei, suntem onorați că suntem prezenți la Cluj, acest oraș care s-a dezvoltat, la aeroportul din Cluj, care s-a dezvoltat deosebit, care a constituit un punct important în dezvoltarea regiunii, a transportului aerian și a asigurat dezvoltarea economică, etc.
Cluj is an ideal example of an emerging market for regional aviation that takes its opportunities, such as its geographic position, and turns this into tangible contribution towards its economic master plan.
Clujul a profitat de situația sa geografică și a reușit să stabilească, să pună bazele unui master plan privind transportul aviatic.
But COVID-19 got in our way, and we had to postpone our conference date for 2021 and most recently for January this year. The new date for Cluj was set for March 31st.
Conferința ar fi trebuit să fie ținută în 2021, a fost amânată pentru ianuarie anul acesta și în sfârșit are loc în acest moment.
But between January and March of this year, the world, and especially Europe, has changed dramatically.
În schimb, între ianuarie și martie, situația pe plan mondial și în special la nivel european s-a schimbat în mod dramatic.
And no one in this room will be in doubt that it has in fact changed for good.
Și nimeni din această sală probabil nu se îndoiește de faptul că transformările care au avut loc sunt spre bine.
So for us, plenty of reasons to postpone an aviation conference in the context of war that puts into perspective almost everything that we have prior seen as major issues for our industry, for the world, for our lives.
Situația unui război a ridicat probleme deosebite atât pentru industria aviației cât și pentru viețile noastre.
But reflecting on the opportunity for our industry to come together today and tomorrow, and especially in the current geopolitical context, in fact turned out to be an important opportunity, if not an obligation for us.
Această situație geopolitică s-a transformat într-o oportunitate pentru industria aviației și o resimțim ca pe o obligație, de fapt.
Not for the agenda we have foreseen back then for the January conference, of course not.
Bineînțeles că acest lucru nu s-ar fi putut realiza într-o conferință în luna ianuarie.
But for a new agenda, an agenda that is focused on what is impacting and will be defining our industry in the future.
Avem o nouă agendă care va avea un impact și va fi influențată în ceea ce privește viitorul industriei aviației.
New issues that emerge, which are beyond what we would have expected to be ever confronted with within the time frame of our careers.
Sunt niște perspective noi la care nici nu ne-am gândit în decursul carierelor noastre.
So Cluj is not only the first post-COVID physical life aviation conference in Europe.
Deci Cluj nu este doar primul centru al conferinței despre aviație din Europa.
Most importantly, Aviation Event 2022 Cluj is a platform for us as an industry, together with our political and regulatory stakeholders and supporters, our ecosystem partners and governments to come together and to make a statement.
Este, în primul rând, o platformă nu numai pentru industria aviației, ci și pentru forțele politice, economice, sociale, care trebuie să aibă un cuvânt de spus.
An opportunity to contribute to the international solidarity that won't be without impact.
Este o oportunitate de a contribui la solidaritatea internațională și de a avea impact.
It is a unique opportunity that we have at hand, and one that we will use wisely.
Este o oportunitate deosebită care ni se înfățișează și trebuie să o folosim cu înțelepciune.
And in this context, Cluj is probably the most important aviation event that has ever taken place on the European continent. All eyes will be on us, and our voice will be heard.
Toți ochii vor fi asintiți asupra noastră, vocea noastră va fi auzită, pentru că acest eveniment de la Cluj este cel mai important din Europa.
So we look forward to a productive day of thoughtful reflection on the current issues at hand and the new normal for regional and global aviation ahead of us.
Deci, așteptăm cu nerăbdare perspectivele care ni se deschid pentru aviația regională și globală, aspecte care vor fi discutate în cadrul conferinței de mâine.
One last word to David. David took me through the impressive growth rate of Cluj Airport over the past more than 10 years when we were sitting in the lounge just before.
Încă un ultim cuvânt, domnul Cicio mi-a prezentat acest aeroport acum 10 ani, începând cu locul acesta unde ne aflăm.
Congratulations to David and his team. I know firsthand that such figures do not happen without great effort, and equally important, the collaboration between all the stakeholders for aviation here in the destination of Cluj.
Aș dori să felicit pe domnul Cicio și echipa dânsului, pentru că cifrele care vorbesc astăzi nu s-au întâmplat, nu puteau fi realizate fără un efort susținut și aceasta a implicat toate părțile care au avut un cuvânt de spus în cadrul bunei funcționări a aeroportului.
I salute you, congratulate you and wish you more success into the future.
Vă salut, vă felicit și vă doresc mult succes în viitor.
So thank you for your interest, for your support and for your active participation.
Vă mulțumesc pentru interesul manifestat, pentru sprijin și pentru participarea activă.
Yes, now you are the bosses, yeah? You can ask questions.
Acum
How does it work with
întrebări.
microphones? We have microphone here. So the first gentleman on my left.
Avem
a
microfoane,
question.
puteți solicita. Vă rog să dați domnului din stânga mea.
You can ask in Romanian, you can ask in Ukrainian, you can ask in German, you can ask in English. We have translation for almost every
În
combination.
engleză,
And you
în
can ask in
ucraineană.
what we call Switzerdeutsch. Yeah? This is Peter Baumgartner's expert language. Peter is from Switzerland, by the way. So even that is welcome.
Gartner
So, please,
este
the
din
first question.
Elveția și puteți adresa și întrebări și în germană. Had we not had
Mihai Bacalu, dacă
a war on our borders,
l-aș fi întrebat pe domnul director David Ciceo
I would
când
have
ne
asked
duce
the CEO
de la
of Cluj,
Cluj
when will he take us from Cluj
pe lună sau pe Marte.
to the moon or to Mars?
În condițiile date, v-aș
Under
întreba,
the present circumstances, I would ask you,
având în vedere că sunt fiul unui veteran de război care a cucerit Odessa,
since I am the son of a war veteran who
Când-
has conquered Odessa,
când ne-ați putea duce la Odessa să o apărăm de data asta?
when could you take us to Odessa to fight for it and guard it this time?
Având în vedere, trecând dincolo de aceste considerații metaforice de suflet, v-aș
Beyond
întreba,
these metaphorical considerations,
La
my
modul
question
realist,
would be,
cum va arăta aviația civilă mâine?
what is the picture of the civilized aviation of tomorrow?
Avioanele vor fi dotate cu scut antirachetă, vom avea parașute la noi.
Will we be
Despre ce
in
veți
town with
discuta de fapt? Care vor
parachutes?
fi
Will
principalele
we be protected
diferențe
from
față de ce avem astăzi?
rackets? What will you discuss tomorrow during the conference?
I think this goes first to you, David, right?
Cred că dumneavoastră trebuie să
Da.
răspundeți prima dată.
Da, prima întrebare
Cicio.
era metaforică.
Yes, the first question was a metaphor.
Dar legat de prima întrebare, care este metaforică,
in connection with the first metaphorical question,
ca și toți românii ne exprimăm solidaritatea legată de Ucraina și ucrainieni.
as every Romanian, I would like to express my solidarity, our solidarity towards the Ukraine and the Ukrainians.
Aeroportul Internațional Cluj zilnic a sprijinit ucrainienii care au zburat de pe Cluj.
All the Ukrainians who have flown to Cluj.
Consiliul de Administrație de asemenea a aprobat facilități pentru companiile aeriene care sprijină călătoria ucrainienilor.
The Council of Administration has voted for enhanced possibilities for the air companies, flight companies which are supporting the refugees from the Ukraine.
A doua întrebare, cred că Marcel ar putea să...
The second question could be answered by Mr. Marcel.
I would like to emphasize that
Aș dori să subliniez faptul
in about 2 hours, I think, no, even 1 hour and a half,
cam într-o oră și jumătate,
a gentleman will land here in Cluj International Airport.
un domn
He is the CEO of, I think, Europe's third largest airline, right, Peter?
a sosit,
It's Joseph Ferrari, Wizz Air, a nice colleague of us, right?
And un coleg minunat de al nostru.
Why I'm saying this? Because I think Joseph Ferrari and, let's say, Wizz Air have donated 100,000 air tickets to people having escaped from Ukraine. 100,000 air tickets. Peter, you're an expert. Can you give us a number in euros? What is the production value? Just a rough estimation. I know we didn't talk before, but maybe you can, as an expert, you can give us an idea.
What I can tell you is that for Wizz Air it was a little bit less than for us at Etihad at the time.
Yeah.
Pot să vă spun despre
Few million.
Wizz Air, valoarea este 2 milioane de euro.
It's a tangible numbers in the million.
Yeah. And I think many of these free air seats have been processed through Cluj Airport. Not all of them, obviously.
Cred că multe din aceste zboruri au fost procesate către aeroportul din Cluj, bineînțeles nu toate.
Some of these tickets went also to Otopeni, I think so, and a lot of them went also to some Polish airports, obviously. Everything which is near to the border has been taken by Wizz Air. Yeah?
Unele bilete se adresau aeroportului din București, iar altele i-au îndreptat pe călători spre Polonia, pentru că se află în zona de graniță.
Okay, we hope that we answered a bit your questions.
Sperăm că am răspuns într-câtva
obviously,
întrebări. Evident,
tomorrow,
mâine,
at the end of each, let's say, session,
la
panel,
sfârșitul fiecărui panel
or
sau
keynotes,
sesiune sau după vorbitorii principali,
a limited number of questions to the panelists are allowed, David. So we plan a bit of time so that
câteva întrebări.
for those specific answers you may request and we three cannot provide today, we refer to tomorrow and invite you to challenge
care nu pot fi date astăzi.
let's say, top speakers from all over Europe and beyond. We have even people from Canada here, Canada, USA, and even Brazil. Somebody from Brazil is here.
SUA și chiar și din Brazilia.
Next question, please.
Următoarea întrebare, vă rog.
Gentleman first, I would say, then the lady, okay? Is that fine?
Întâi,
Or lady first, as you wish.
doamnele
Thank you
mai
very
întâi.
much. Am și eu o întrebare. Oare aveți ceva statistici sau cifre pe care ați putea să ne le dați astăzi? Cât de afectat a fost acest domeniu al aviației în Europa de Est de când a început războiul în Ucraina?
Do you have statistics and figures to provide us regarding the impact of the Ukrainian war on the European aviation?
Da, o să vă transmitem
Yes, we will
niște statistici ale
transmit you
Eurocontrol.
statistics from Eurocontrol,
modul cum a fost afectată aviația europeană,
in which the European aviation has been influenced,
mai ales în ce privește survolul
especially
aeronavelor.
regarding
Majoritatea țărilor europene au interzis avioanele rusești
most of the European countries
survolul.
banned
Sunt 10 țări europene care
airlines
în
to
continuare
fly.
permit.
There are another 10 countries
România nu este foarte afectată. Anumite avioane care survolau se compensează cu alte aeronave care trebuie să ocolească spațiul aerian al Ucrainei sau al Rusiei, dar sunt unele țări foarte afectate, cum este Republica Moldova, 100%, deci zero survol deasupra Moldovei. Lituania, aproximativ 40% scădere. Deci sunt țări care sunt foarte afectate, dar o să vă furnizăm aceste statistici.
Romania was not so much influenced by this because there was a compensation with airlines which had to detour their flights through
Să înțeleg că România nu a pierdut atât de mult din punct de vedere financiar din acest aspect.
Nu, scăderea avioanelor care survolează România este de aproximativ minus 2%, minus 3%. România nu are o pierdere financiară din acest punct de vedere.
Minus 2, minus 3%. So our financial losses in Romania were not that great.
Hello, I'm here. My name is Oliver. I'm a local Hungarian journalist. I would like to ask Marcel and Peter, why exactly did you choose Cluj and why is it a premiere? Has it been organized in Romania before, this event, or where in Europe, in which major airports?
Okay, I'll just answer your last part first, yeah? Where has aviation event been in the last 12 years? I must say, I can't even give you all the locations anymore, but the last ones I'm remembering very well, obviously. The last one before Cluj was in Bologna, Italia. Before it was Tenerife, yes, Tenerife. Don't be jealous, but it was there. And before there it was Salzburg in Austria. And before that it was Düsseldorf. By the way, the CEO of Düsseldorf Airport will be here tomorrow. And we had also Frankfurt, we had Hamburg in Germany. Yeah, I hope that's sufficient for the moment. For your last question, to your first part of your question, why Cluj?
Can I?
I will answer, and then Peter, please. Yeah, we didn't coordinate, so it's completely from the scratch. My answer is because David Ciceo invited us. Now the strategic answer from Peter, why we are here.
Well, there is as I said in my address, Cluj is a very interesting case study in terms of how aviation growth and the growth in the whole transportation sector makes an economic impact. You know, my background very much over 15 years in the United Arab Emirates, and I have seen how a national airline, an airline can transform a region in terms of direct, indirect, and catalyst effect on a local economy. And I think that's what you are experiencing here. And if it is done well, Cluj could become a template of how to develop regions on the basis of a strong aviation agenda. And as I said, very importantly, and I speak here with some authority out of my experience, the importance of the collaboration, the tight collaboration amongst all the stakeholders along the value chain. And I think you are on a very, very good track and can really deliver here a case study for region, not just for aviation, but for regional destinational development.
No, it's first time Romania. It's even first time in, let's call it Eastern Europe. I mean, Eastern Europe defined by the new membership states of European Union. It's first ever for both. And I give you an outlook. What where we might go in the nearby future. I
would like to translate briefly. Întrebarea a fost pusă de ce a fost ales Clujul și dacă a fost planificat acest lucru. Răspunsul a fost din partea domnului Rivalski că a fost invitat de către domnul director Ciccio și că și a enumerat orașele începând cu Bologna din Italia până la Düsseldorf. Ați auzit orașele, iar reprezentantul de la Düsseldorf va fi prezent mâine aici. Din punct de vedere strategic, se pare că aeroportul din Cluj reprezintă un exemplu de bune practici, este un studiu de caz deosebit, după cum a spus domnul Baumgartner, poate deveni un template, un model de dezvoltare economică, felul în care dezvoltarea unui aeroport poate influența dezvoltarea regională și a întregii țări.
So what could be, I cannot confirm today, and today is not the time to talk about possible other aviation events, because now we concentrate on Cluj, on tomorrow obviously, on all these top speakers from at least all around Europe, if not all around the world, coming here. But we can confirm to close your question that we have candidates from Montenegro, from Albania, from Greece, and big surprise also again from Tenerife. So nice locations are still on the list, yeah. Actually the aviation event team has two dreams, David. You don't know? First dream is to come back to Cluj next year, if you like to have us back. And the second dream came more or less spontaneously, by the way, last night. The second dream is to have an aviation event in a free Ukraine.
Pentru a închide răspunsul la întrebarea pusă, da, Clujul este primul oraș din România unde se organizează acest lucru. De fapt, acest eveniment, de fapt, este primul centru din Europa de Sud-Est. Echipa Aviation Event are două vise mari. Unul este acela de a reveni anul viitor la Cluj, iar cel de-al doilea vis deosebit este de a organiza un eveniment într-o Ucraina liberă.
One more question?
O altă întrebare?
It's not the case. David, we need to fill some minutes before Vitaly arrives. Do we know when Vitaly is coming? And how many minutes do we need? Anybody has an information?
Se întreabă dacă se știe când
o să
va sosi
verificăm
domnul Cucer.
între timp până ajunge. Pentru conferința de mâine este o ocazie foarte importantă de a discuta problemele aviației europene, problemele aviației din Europa de Est.
Tomorrow's conference is a very good opportunity to discuss the issues of European aviation, of the aviation in Southeastern Europe.
Aviația civilă a fost foarte afectată de această pandemie și iată că în ultima perioadă și războiul dintre Rusia și Ucraina a avut o contribuție negativă majoră.
Civil aviation has been thoroughly influenced, altered by the situation of the pandemic, and as everyone well knows, it has been badly influenced by the war in the Ukraine.
Suntem onorați că această conferință internațională are loc la Cluj. În ultimii 2 ani este prima conferință internațională majoră care se ține în Cluj-Napoca.
We are very honored that we are hosting this conference in Cluj-Napoca. For the past 2 years, it is the first conference of this importance, of European and international importance, which is held in Cluj.
Nu numai că sperăm, suntem convinși că această conferință internațională dă startul reluării vieții normale în Cluj-Napoca.
It's not only our hope, we are convinced that this conference signifies the beginning of normal life in Cluj-Napoca.
Pe lângă aspectele generale care le vom discuta, bineînțeles că fiind o participare extraordinară, 18 țări, aproximativ 25 de aeroporturi, peste 10 companii aeriene, vor fi foarte multe discuții utile.
So, because the participation is outstanding and this conference is extraordinary, there will be represented about 18 countries, more than 25 airports and more than 10 airlines with outstanding speakers. This means a lot to us.
În ce privește Aeroportul Internațional Cluj, avem ocazia să ne consultăm cu partenerii noștri în ce privește strategia de dezvoltare a aeroportului.
In what concerns our airport, we will be consulting our partners in what concerns the development of the future of our airport.
Consolidarea destinațiilor pe care le avem, deschiderea unor destinații noi.
We will strengthen the destinations, the relationship with the destinations we have already acquired, and we will open new destinations.
Recent s-a încheiat o întâlnire a Aeroportului Internațional Cluj împreună cu directorii generali de la aeroporturile din Muntenegru și din Tirana.
We have recently concluded a meeting with the airport of Tirana and Montenegro, and we were there as representatives of the airport of Cluj.
Împreună cu domnii directori generali de la aeroporturile din Tirana, Muntenegru și cu firmele de turism, sperăm ca în anii următori să aducem zboruri directe către aceste țări.
Together with the managers of the airports in Tirana and in Montenegro, together with the managers of the different travel companies, we hope to take our citizens, our customers directly from Cluj to the aforementioned airports.
Beneficiile care o să le avem noi, aeroportul, urmare acestei conferințe, bineînțeles că le va avea fiecare participant.
The benefits our airport will draw from this conference will be shared definitely by all the participants who are coming to the conference.
Deoarece nu numai prezentările mâine vor fi foarte interesante, dar și discuțiile bilaterale, trilaterale între parteneri.
Not only the presentations will be very interesting, but also the bilateral conversations of the different partners will be equally important.
Întrebări dacă dumneavoastră aveți.
If you have questions.
I have a question, Peter. What would be needed to have at least a weekly connection to the Middle East for such a location like Cluj? What is the minimum requirement that any airline would, of these Middle East carriers, would do at least a weekly connection to a mid-size airport.
Care sunt cerințele minime pentru a exista o linie cel puțin săptămânală cu Orientul
Probably to
Mijlociu?
extend our flights, because now we have Wizz Air weekly flights to Dubai.
Yeah.
So
I agree, but I wanted to know from the, let's say, carriers from the Middle East, what it needs to decide to serve some, let's say, mid-sized airports, which is, Cluj is not a super mega hub, that's clear. So Peter, can you give us an idea?
Avem deja zboruri directe săptămânale la Dubai și totuși de ce ar fi nevoie pentru un aeroport de talie medie, care sunt cerințele minime pentru a exista o legătură săptămânală directă?
Well, first of all, thank you, Marcel, for catching me on the left foot unprepared.
Îi mulțumesc domnului Marcel că m-a prins pe picior greșit.
No, on a serious note, it's actually a very valid question. When you look at Middle Eastern airlines, you can't just generalize it because they have different fleet strategies.
Nu, acum în mod serios, da, este o întrebare foarte legitimă, dar există diferite linii aeriene cu diferite strategii.
Some of them have a pure wide body strategy, where secondary airports becomes a little bit more difficult economically to serve.
Unele dintre aceste companii găsesc cu greu posibilitatea de a servi aeroporturi mai mici.
So over time they introduced a secondary fleet by means of introducing a low-cost or lower-cost entity within the group, such as Emirates and Fly Dubai.
Și se încearcă introducerea unor flote mai mici care pot să ofere călătorii mai ieftine, cum sunt cele spre Dubai.
Other airlines, such as Etihad that I served, do have a mixed fleet strategy with wide-body and narrow-body aircraft, where the narrow-body fleet was very much an opportunity to go into emerging and lucrative secondary airport niches.
Compania pe care o reprezint eu are strategii diferite pentru avioanele mari și avioanele mici și atunci lucrurile se rezolvă mai ușor.
But as David said, he is right, you know, whether it is the secondary airlines or lower cost airlines of major aviation groups or the low-cost airlines themselves, they do very much prepare a market up to a threshold where bigger aircraft will come to your shores, which answers then Marcel's question of how to prepare a market, you know, for entry then for also big airlines. And if you continue to grow and develop the network and the flow as you currently do, that moment will come, and it will be in the graph of David, another stepping stone when the capacity will boost. A lot for you to translate.
Dacă continuați să creșteți, aeroportul, ca până acum, aeroportul din Cluj se va afla în planurile marilor companii, începând cu zborurile low cost și încet din piatră în piatră se va ajunge la dezvoltarea unor linii noi pentru noi companii.
And for that moment, you better get the airport and ready.
Și pentru acest moment, vă rog să pregătiți aeroportul.
I will interrupt shortly because I got a sign that Vitaly Kucheruk has landed landside on this airport. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would ask you to stand up for some standing ovations for this person coming here from the war zone. Please, standing ovations.
Vă rog să vă ridicați și să-l ovaționați pe domnul Cuceruc, care a sosit din zona de război.
Yeah, welcome once again. You can see everybody is waiting for you. Hannah will translate so that we can perfectly understand what Vitaly would like to tell us right now. Maybe some first words. Where are you coming from? How was the journey to come here? And how did you survive?
Hana va traduce câteva cuvinte despre modul în care a decurs călătoria dumneavoastră, cum ați supraviețuit, cum ați ajuns aici.
Сразу можно. Добрый день всем. Добирались трудно. Вы знаете, откуда я приехал. В Украине сейчас идет настоящая война.
Good day. Thank you for having us. It was a difficult way. You all know where I came from. In Ukraine, it's a real war happening.
24 февраля было нападение абсолютно неожиданное на Украину Российской Федерации.
On the 24th of February, it was a sudden invasion of Russian Federation into Ukraine.
С этого времени мы находимся в военном положении.
Since then, we are in the emergency military conditions. Real war is happening.
Поэтому путешествие было достаточно тяжелое, чтобы добраться к вам. Но я очень рад вас всех здесь видеть. Спасибо большое за прием. Спасибо. И за поддержку.
That is why it was real hard to get here, but thank you for having us and thank you for your support.
So we are free to ask any questions now to Vitaly, and translation will be guaranteed. So any language for your question is welcome. Anybody wants to start? I heard any special.
Dacă cineva dorește
Maybe
să
microphone.
pună întrebări,
Maybe we start here and then you can. Yeah, please.
puteți solicita microfon.
Vreau să întreb dacă acest conflict va afecta sezonul turistic din vară.
I wanted to ask whether
În
this
zona litoralului Mării Negre, ați vorbit despre Dubai, dar
conflict will influence the tourism of this summer. You mentioned Dubai, but you did not mention the region of the Black Sea.
dar nu avea legătură cu...
Can you please repeat the translation? Is it about the summer period which was?
Сколько у нас времени есть?
Yes, the future, this, the summer of 2022.
Litoralul Mării Negre este vizat nu doar de clujeni și de români. Este vorba de... Mă gândeam la litoralul românesc, bulgaresc, turcesc.
I was referring to the Black Sea coast, that is the Romanian Sea coast, Bulgarian Sea coast, and so on.
Hello and welcome. What's the situation now at your airport? Here. Hello.
We still have to reply the previous question, okay? Give us 1 second.
Будем отвечать по одному вопросу или по одному вопросу? Вот, мадемуазель, да? Вы, наверное, не понимаете, идет война, никакого туристического сезона нету.
Maybe you do not understand the real situation. We cannot prognose anything. We cannot talk about touristic season. There is no touristic season coming. We cannot talk about this.
Я могу сказать немножко, господин Дэвид, мы с ним знакомы, я здесь уже был, и благодаря его подсказкам я начал развивать свой аэропорт так, как это делал он.
Probabil nu înțelegeți situația, nu există sezon turistic.
Okay, but thanks to David, I started talking to him, and that's how we started developing our airport, as well as he's developing his, and it started in 2018 and was successfully going.
Представьте, он директор аэропорта с 1995 года.
Imagine he's a director of this airport since 1995.
И у него вся жизнь прошла в этом аэропорту.
He spent entire life of his in this airport.
Он начинал в аэропорту, когда пассажиропоток был 20 тысяч, сейчас 3 миллиона.
He started his career when the airport traffic was 20,000 people, and now it is 3 million people.
И вы представьте, когда в час ночи сюда заходит спецназ на боевой технике и сразу все арестовывает. Тут не будет ни одного сотрудника в аэропорту, ни одного, если это будет спецназ России.
Okay, so imagine in the middle of the night, the special forces, the armored forces, invade the airport with the tanks and everything, so there will be no employees and nothing will happen.
Вся жизнь Давида после этого останавливается.
Imagine that entire life of his stops right away.
И тогда здесь располагаются войска, вы, наверное, все знаете, новости до вас заходят. Аэропорт Херсон – это Чернобаевка.
And then all the operations, of course, stop, and the military forces now base here. So basically, the Kherson airport is all over the news, and it's basically Chernobyevka.
Он полностью оккупирован, и вы слышали, сколько раз там происходят боевые столкновения.
It is fully occupied, and you, of course, heard that all the time the fights are happening there, and the rockets are being shot, and missiles are being caught since then.
По такому случаю, когда пришел президент Зеленский в 2019 году, стал президентом, он открыл такую программу, которая у нас называется «Велике будівництво», то есть большое строительство.
Since Zelensky came to his post in 2019, he started the program which is literally transcribed as a big building, massive building.
И по этой программе мы должны были 27 марта запускать аэропорт с новой взлетно-посадочной полосой.
And according to this program, on 27th of March, it has been planned that the airport of Kherson is starting new operations with a new runway.
С новой светосигнальной системой.
With all the new lighting, airport lighting.
С новой навигационной системой.
With new navigation systems.
Было вложено в течение после ковида было вложено порядка 30 миллионов евро.
After the COVID, it was invested more than 30 million euros into developing of the airport.
27 числа мы должны были его торжественно открывать.
And on 27th of March, it has been planned to welcome people on the celebration of the development of the airport.
Сейчас этот аэропорт бомбили 12 раз. Можете представить, что там сейчас есть.
The airport has been attacked, bombed, literally, 12 times officially. So you can only imagine what's left there.
Question, is the airport used by the Russian war criminals, or is it completely destroyed and like unusable?
Да, он используется войсками, они сделали командный пункт, и поэтому постоянно они как бы наступают на одни и те же грабли, постоянно их там разбиваем, они постоянно там создают, там очень узкое горлышко прохода в Украину, и они постоянно там собираются, и вот там как бы постоянно получают, как говорят.
Okay, so it's now being used by Russian forces, and they operate there. They fly out, and there is like a bottleneck, the narrow thing, narrow space where they can come. That's where we hit them 12 times now.
Okay. More questions?
Yes, here. How he escaped and how was the road in details.
Тяжело, половина Киев. Я выбрался вообще совершенно случайно. Херсон оккупирован. Мои сотрудники все остались там, в Херсоне.
It was a difficult road, and it's kind of sudden that I had a chance to escape. Like entire Kherson city is occupied, and all the employees of mine are still in Kherson.
Я 23 февраля приехал на совещание в Министерство инфраструктуры по вопросу открытия аэропорта. У нас было в Киев, да. У нас было большое совещание 23-го, и 24-го я должен был возвращаться назад.
Okay, so there is a coincidence. On the 23rd of March, I traveled to Kiev to Ministry of Infrastructure of Ukraine to get prepared for the big celebration of the opening of our airport. And I had to go back on March 24th, and you all know what happened then.
Сейчас у сотрудников, которые живут в Чернобаевке, у многих разрушенные дома. Слава Богу, никто еще не пострадал. Есть раненые, но слава Богу, что нет убитых. А сейчас они находятся на грани выживания, потому что ни зарплаты, ни питания, гуманитарные конвои туда не проходят, не пропускают.
So all the employees are sadly still in Kherson, basically in Chernobyivka. They're all locked there. Luckily, we do not have any victims, but many people are wounded. All their houses are destroyed. The infrastructure is destroyed. They do not have food. Humanitarian help cannot come in the city because it's being occupied.
What is the current situation in the, let's say, south and southeast of Ukraine, the military situation? Is there any pushback of Russian war criminals, or like around Kiev, or are they still progressing?
Ситуация очень тяжелая, потому что абсолютно неравные силы.
The situation is very, very difficult. First of all, because the forces are not equal.
Вы же все знаете, что до того, как Россия напала на Украину, ее считали второй армией в мире.
You all know that before they invaded our country, they were treated as a second most, the biggest and most powerful army in the world.
Абсолютно героический народ стоит за свою свободу.
And absolutely heroic nation is standing up against them for their land.
Вот так тяжело на наш украинский народ столько свалилось за это время. И развал Советского Союза, и 3 революции, и оккупация Крыма, оккупация Донбасса и война.
So on this heroic nation, a lot of things have happened since USSR broke, 3 revolutions, and now the actual war we have to resist.
Вот таким способом добывается свобода.
That's how we conquer the freedom. That's how we get our freedom.
То, что касается вашего вопроса по все те группировки, которые они 24 числа стянули границы, они разбиты, их группировки?
So all the groups that were brought to the border before 24th and actually invaded on 24th, they're now beaten.
Они сейчас собирают резервы со всей России, подтягивают резервы.
They are now mobilize all the nation in Russia and try to strengthen their power at the borders again.
И объявляют призыв на вооруженную силу, на вооруженную службу.
And they are calling for action in Russia to act against Ukraine.
Act against Ukraine. One last question. As you were telling us just a moment ago, that all or most of your employees are still in this occupied territory, let's say. Do you have any information from first hand how the aggressors, how the occupiers are treating the people, the Ukrainian people.
Еще оккупанты, мы их называем оккупанты, да, они надеялись, что будет легко на тех территориях, которые они оккупировали.
We call them occupiers, basically because they do occupy the land. They actually thought and hoped that that would be easy for them to get the land, and we would be glad to see them.
У нас административное деление Украины – это области.
Our country is divided into administrative regions, and we just call them oblast, which is basically region.
У нас 23 области.
We have 33 regions in the country.
И 23 областных центра.
Meaning 23 regional centers.
Они захватили только один областной центр, это Херсон.
And as of now, they have only occupied one.
В Херсоне каждый день идут выступления людей, которые не хотят жить под оккупацией, мирные выступления. Люди приходят, их разгоняют слезоточивыми гранатами, выстрелами, их разгоняют, они каждый день собираются.
So ever since it's been occupied, the civilians of Kherson, basically pro-Ukrainian nation, is going on strikes, peaceful strikes, to show their support of Ukraine, that they do not want to be occupied and they want to stay under Ukrainian facilities and authorities. But then occupiers come and use the tearing gas, if I can say so, tearing gas, and they shoot in the air to make those strikes abort.
Практически нет людей, которые пошли бы с ними на сотрудничество.
There are barely people who would cooperate with them. There are almost no one who would cooperate with them.
Это была большая ошибка Путина. Он надеялся, что его там встретят с хлебом и солью.
There was a big mistake of Putin. He actually thought that people would meet him with bread and salt, because this is the Ukrainian tradition, we meet with bread and salt. So he thought so, but that was a mistake.
I think we have one question from one journalist. Please stand up and the stage is yours.
Hello. Întrebarea mea este, ce ne puteți spune despre celelalte aeroporturi din Ucraina? Sunt în aceeași situație ca cel din Kherson și după ce războiul se va încheia, cât timp credeți că vă va lua să restaurați aeroportul și să-l redeschideți?
So my question is whether the situation of the airport you are representing of Kherson, what is the situation with the other airports? And after the war will end, what do you think, how long do you think it will take to restore the situation back to normal?
Аэропорт Ялта – это в Крыму. Крым с 2014 года находится в оккупации.
Yalta Airport, that was the question, right? So Yalta Airport is in Crimea.
No, just about the all airports in Ukraine.
He will talk one by one. So Yalta Airport is in Crimea and it's been occupied since 2014.
Единственный аэропорт областной, под оккупацией только один аэропорт, это аэропорт Херсон.
So as of now, the only airport which is occupied is Kherson Airport. Other south and southeast airports are still Ukrainian.
В Украине для гражданской авиации воздушное пространство закрыто.
In Ukraine, the airspace for civil aviation is closed since 24th.
Гражданские аэропорты не работают.
Civil airports do not operate, of course.
Ни в одном городе Украины.
In any of the cities, they're just closed.
Россия использует ракеты морского базирования с Черного моря и использует ракеты со своей территории, с России, по бомбежке аэропортов, гражданских аэропортов Украины.
Russian Federation is using rockets and missiles based in the sea and from their own territory, from Russia, to attack the civil airports in Ukraine.
В аэропорту Винница погибло 15 человек, в аэропорту Львов 7 человек, в аэропорту Ровно, ну вот там, где бомбят практически все аэропорты.
In Vinica, 15 people have died. In Lviv, 7 people have died. We are talking about airports here. And then in Rivne, they keep on attacking that airport, and we still do not know the number of victims.
So how long will it take after the war is finished to restore the airports? What does he think?
На реставрацию аэропорта Херсон? Мы работаем быстро, мы быстро все восстановим, лишь бы оккупант ушел.
As soon as everything finishes, we will work as fast as we can. We only hope this will finish soon.
Maybe one last question, and then we can still stay here, and Peter and David and all of us, and obviously also Vitaly is staying a moment here for other talks and questions. I would close, before we go to the more networking part of the conference, I would close with one question. Maybe you can answer it as a Ukrainian citizen and also as an airport guy, let's say. Yeah? Maybe the answers are different, I don't know. What do you need the most of help of the world in this moment? What is the most urgent single help we can provide?
Очень приятно, что вся Европа, весь свободный мир нам помогают.
We are enormously grateful that entire free world is helping us.
То, что касается как украинец.
As a Ukrainian, I can say so.
Это и озвучивал наш президент, и все украинцы получают свою порцию, города, аэропорты. Есть города, которые разрушены полностью, абсолютно полностью. Такие, как Мариуполь, такие, как Волноваха. Вчера в областную администрацию Николаева ракета, там погибло больше 20 человек.
Our president and other leaders of the world have announced that most of all the airports, the civil aviation facilities are being attacked, and the civil cities like Mariupol, Volnovakha, and yesterday Mykolaiv, the regional center, the regional administrative building of the city was destroyed, and there are more than 20 victims.
Из-за того, что гибнут мирные люди,
and because the civilians die,
мы просим закрыть небо.
We are asking to close the sky.
Силы не равны. Количество авиации и количество войск ПВО не равно.
The forces are not equal. The amount of aviation units and the rockets is not equal.
Вы уже знаете, наверное, из прессы, что больше 200 детей погибли.
We are sure you know that, from your press, from the media, that more than 200 children have died.
Поэтому мы просим закрыть небо.
That's why only we are asking for is to close the sky.
Мы понимаем, что Румыния входит в коалицию НАТО.
We understand that Romania is a part of NATO.
И мы понимаем, что НАТО не воюет с Россией.
And we understand that NATO is not fighting Russia.
И понимаем, что нам надо самим освобождать свою территорию.
And we do understand that we have to handle this and free our territory by ourselves.
Но мы обращаемся к руководству Румынии помощи в закрытии неба. Какими способами? Или предоставить нам средства ПВО.
So we are asking the government and administration of Romania to help us closing the sky in such ways like supplying us anti-air forces bases. Not sure how it's in English. The ones covering the sky.
Или же самолеты, или ПВО. ПВО — это и самолеты.
So those equipment can be airplanes or it can be territory-based equipment.
Мы обращаемся ко всем странам Восточной Европы. Это Болгария, Польша, Словакия, Румыния. Там, где остались советские самолеты, советские средства ПВО. Это МиГ-29, Су-24, Су-25, системы ПВО С-300.
So we are addressing our offer to support us to all the Eastern European countries like Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, Slovakia, and others to supply us the equipment, the land-based equipment S-300, C-300, MiG-24,
Maybe
Su-24, and others which they still have from USSR times.
Ukraine is asking for basically two things. This is anti-air missile systems, to make it short. And why are they asking especially Eastern European countries? We talked about this at the beginning of the conference in a different sense. Because the Ukrainian air forces are not trained to use the, let's say, a bit more modern Middle European and Western European anti-air missile systems. So training them in this war situation would take too much time and would be rather impossible. So that's why the S-300 system would be very welcome, because trained people, trained soldiers are in Ukrainian army already, let's say, present. The second thing, it's about the fighter jets. It's the same question. It doesn't help Ukraine at all if Germany or France would deliver Eurofighters. Nobody can use them, nobody can fly them. The system support would not be possible, even not one day. Yeah, so that's why these a bit older mixed systems are demanded, because they can be supported not only by the pilots but also by the ground services to be used effectively. Yeah, I think that was the summarizing of the situation. I would like to thank Peter first, being here. You can squeeze him, yeah? Everything which is Far East, Switzerland and beyond the world about aviation, that's Peter. Everything which is global aviation and Cluj, that's David. You can squeeze him with questions. And everything which is Ukraine questions, you can still talk and network to Vitaly. Thank you very much being here. And I think all of us, we stay a moment to talk to you if you want. I think translation is available, yes, so that anybody can ask any question to anybody. Thank you very much.
Mulțumim mult. Vă invităm sus la etaj la o cafea. Upstairs we have a coffee. Mai puteți pune întrebări. Domnul Vitali Cuceruc rămâne în continuare. Mulțumim încă o dată pentru efortul dânsului.
There is a coffee upstairs. You could go on asking questions from our guests.
Thank you very much for your effort.
We would like to thank Mr. Cuceruc for his effort of coming here.
În urmă cu aproximativ 2 săptămâni în bordul Europei. 2 weeks ago, we had an emergency meeting of Airport Council International European Board. Everybody expressed their support. European aviation is ready. We all hope this war to end as soon as possible. After this, European aviation is ready to support restarting Ukrainian civil aviation. Thank you very much. We invite everybody for a coffee, and probably there will be more questions from. Thank you very much.